New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Hello, everybody.
What's up?
What's happening? Hey, it's Donna.
And Norma.
And we are your Phoenixes Rising. And today we're talking about caring for caregivers. And let me just tell you, this is so important because right now our caregivers are being squished under the weight of this pandemic, and not just those who do this kind of work like myself, but everybody who is taking care of others.
Yes.
So who are we? We have a little agenda. We're going to try to follow the agenda. Usually I'm very squirrely, so this is good. This is good. Who are we? My name is Donna Davis. I am married to this amazing, wonderful light being here, Norma Anderson. And we have been together now for about 15 years. And I have a background as a registered nurse, as well as a frontline worker in the pandemic at the beginning of this crazy that we call COVID. I'm also an interfaith minister. I've been an interfaith minister for a while now, for over 10 years. Actually, it was about the time we've been together, so 15 years thereabouts. And I'm also an esthetician. I like to do a bunch of different things. And I also attend Center for Spiritual Living, Ocala, and I am one of the practitioners there at Center for Spiritual Living.
Yeah, she's Jamaican. She got like 10 jobs, man.
I think it's just anybody. I call myself a mandala. There's several aspects of me, and it's okay. Each aspect is different, but just as wonderful.
Well, I am her counterpart, cohort, all of those adjoining terms. Her wife, Norma Anderson. I am the other half of Your Phoenixes Rising, which is a wellness company here in Florida. And online, we do coaching and other things that help to enlighten and enliven your being. I am also a licensed massage therapist, so I am more the body part of our group. They say I have magical hands, but I wouldn't know. I've never felt them, but I'm going to go with the consensus.
She's amazing. She's amazing.
Mm-hmm. I am also a practitioner at the Center for Spiritual Living, Ocala, and also a mother and was a daughter-in-law. We did a lot of care for her, Donna's mom, when she was alive, so that was a growing experience for us, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So that's just a little bit of who we are. When we created Your Phoenixes Rising, and I decided I wanted to speak to this each time so that as people were coming on, they can kind of get to know who we were. Your Phoenixes Rising was birthed from this idea that, yes, you have ancestral pain, and yes, stuff has happened to you in your past and in your story, but you can either hold on to that past and decide that that's who I am forever.
And keep reliving it.
And keep reliving it and keep being in the pain. Or you can take that past and say, what have I learned from this? And which parts of the coal, if you will, that burnt me in the past is actually the magic that forces me to rise. And that is where I am right now in my life, in my 40s. I'm saying I have learned some stuff in my life. I have been through some, interesting experiences. And so now I'm able to take those experiences and share my gifts and talents with the world. And that's what I'm doing through what I do professionally, what I do spiritually, what I do as a friend, every aspect of who I am. And so that's what makes me a caregiver. I give a lot of care to the world.
And you know what? It doesn't matter where we are on the economic, social level. It doesn't matter where we are in a status in the community. It doesn't matter about any of that kind of stuff. We all have coals. We all have things that have, kind of burnt us or fired us in the past. And, it's what we do with that stuff, just like Anna said, whether we use it, bury it over, cover it over, try to bury it and, try to forget about it, which you can never really do that. It's always there festering. Or we uncover it, examine it, figure out what lessons there are to be learned from it, use that information to fuel us into our next whatever it is to be for us.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you can do that with your life, with your goals, that is where the magic happens.
Yes, absolutely. So today, in each discussion, each time we come on here, we are going to start with a centering, and then we are going to step into an aspect of self-care that works for caregivers, and then how it works in our life, whether or not we've used it before, and if it worked, because there's tons of stuff out there, right? You could just Google it and see. But we want to know the stuff that we've been using and what we have done and where in the fire have we used it and we've said, yep, this really worked, or no, it's just a bunch of BS. But we're just going to share that with you.
And there may be tools that I've used more than Donna, and there's maybe some that she uses as a staple, her go-to, that I may dabble in or haven't really experienced with. So you get perspectives from both our sides, because we come from different stories. We have different tools to to use and to dig from. So I think it'd be interesting conversation.
And ultimately, we balance each other as a couple.
Yes.
I'm more creative and crazy, and she's more
grounded.
And analytical.
Keep pulling her down. Come back.
We're both kind of creative and crazy too, a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
And that's part of the fun part of us. So let us start with this pray in. I love to go into the state of meditative energy, which is just the recognizing, of just life itself, and then saying, okay, I'm a part of that. And that's it. Yeah. So let us do that. We don't have any music right now. I'm thinking maybe we should add some music one day, like a song bowl or something. But I am adding, one of the things that we use here that we got a hold of a while ago was essential oils. And it was one of those house parties where they come to your house and they teach you about the essential oils and then you buy it from your friend who brought the product. Well, that's how we got started in it. And we just still like the company, which we use Young Living. I know there's doTERRA, there's some that is on
there's
your
a lot of
local
new companies
organic.
that come out that are really good.
Tons of new companies, but I like it because smell makes me feel good. So I love aromatherapy. That's one of my self-care things, and we'll talk about aromatherapy one of these times. But I'm going to go ahead and use some stress away because I've had some stuff going on, getting my the office ready for our site visit from the state for a nurse registry. So, that's a very stressful thing. So I'm allowing myself to get centered into this space, using a little bit of stress away. Just taking your breath. And as I am breathing, I'm listening to the sound of my own breath. And if you're listening to me live, the sound of my voice mixed with the sound of your own breath. And I'm recognizing that life is existing in the very spot that I'm sitting in. I'm recognizing that the air that I take into my body and the carbon dioxide that I expel, all of it going back and forth, this ebb and flow is always happening. A lot of the times I'm not even paying attention to it, but here it is, bringing my awareness to the breath. And as we're grounding into this space, the seat that you're sitting in or laying in or wherever you are when you're listening to these words, I want you to know that you are a sacred being in this beautiful human experience. And yes, there are experiences that cause pain and experiences that cause joy. And all of it is the perspective of that human being coming from its story together with other human beings. All of them seeing their world through their own perspective. And in this very moment, I'm seeing my world in my perspective, speaking these words, sitting in this chair and breathing. And the one thing that I know is true for me is that I am a part of life. And I know that's true for everyone else. We are all a part of life. And life, the symbiotic movement of how air moves through the atmosphere, through other animals, through the plants, through my body, all of it is working divinely, unfolding beautifully in its expression, influenced by what I do and my thoughts. And as I walk in this world with other beings, inhabiting this earth together, this planet, this solar system together, creating and expanding and turning ourselves over, we are all a part of life. And so in this moment, I invite you, as you're taking the next breath, to know that that breath is life-sustaining, that that breath is assured, that oxygen comes to you the same way it comes for everyone else that is having a wonderful experience, and everyone else that may be having a painful experience. And this same oxygen is available to every single person, every plant, every animal, every being on this earth. It is here for all of us to partake in and to experience. And I get no more and no less than anyone else simply because I make a choice to be different or to think different or to be bold or not to be bold. And as I give of my gift as a caregiver, as I take care of others at the hospital, as I help my family, as I cook a meal, as I go around and hand money to the homeless guy, or smile at the person, or hold the door open for someone else, as I am doing my part in the world to alleviate the stress or burden of someone else, I know that I too am being cared for simply with this breath. And I know that as in this conversation continues with Norma and to the people who are listening, and the sound of your breath, I know that we are all rising together, learning from the ashes of our past and propelling into a beautiful new future unfolding for each and every one of us. I see it, I know it, I am so grateful for it. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.
And so it is. You always do that so beautifully, Donna. You just can always seem to get us right back to that place of connection with the divine and realizing our place is the oneness.
We are a part of it.
Yes.
You can't step out of it at any time.
Yes. So thank you so much for that.
You're so welcome.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was nice. And with that, I will take a sip of water.
While she's taking her sip of water, our topic for today, or our aspect of self-care, is breath work.
Mm-hmm.
Breath work. What is that, Donna?
What is breath work? Well,
Because
I'm
we all
glad you
breathe,
asked.
don't we? I mean,
We're all breathing.
we all walk around living, breathing. Isn't that breath work?
Wait, stop breathing for a second. There is a mechanism. Go ahead and breathe.
Okay.
There's a mechanism inside all of us that triggers our body to breathe. And we can't, even if we wanted to hold our breath. Our daughter is wonderful. She's a mermaid, a professional mermaid, and she does these specific breathing exercises so that she can hold her breath underwater for over 2.5 minutes now. I think her breath work is.
I think when
Breath
she
hold.
started, she was under like 36 seconds.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, it takes a lot of training to do that kind of work. And these free divers, I mean, they have to get their body in such a state of meditation that they can get there. But it starts with the awareness of the breath. I am not a breathwork master, and neither is Norma. Okay. We don't expect anybody to be a breathwork master. What this is about is, and when we're talking about caring for caregivers, we're talking about different aspects of self care that we use to replenish ourselves so that we can give our gift to the world. And breath work is the awareness of the breath, I think, in everything that I've done.
And it's one of the things I think that's taken for granted more than any other self-care procedure because, like I said when we first started, I'm walking around, I'm breathing. Isn't that breath work? Well, no, it's not.
It's not the same. And that's the thing. So the aspect of self-care we're talking about is breath work. So here we are, and we're trying to stay on our time and topic, y'all. I'm being good. The time that we've ever used it, for me, I use breath work a lot when I am working in the hospital. I know it feels, don't get me wrong, it's difficult, especially for us nurses and doctors, because we're dealing with stuff like COVID right now. So I'm a frontline worker. And I remember the first time I had to get completely garbed up in the whole deal, right? I wore the white bunny suit. Y'all, it was exciting. I ain't gonna lie. It was very kind
Face
of
shield and all
with the
that
whole
stuff.
apocalyptic thing, man. It was a whole white bunny suit, and then you had the gloves on, and you have your mask, and you have your N95, which then graduated to a respirator for our group there in New York at Ground Zero. And so you have this whole thing on, and we're talking about breath work. And COVID attacks the breath. It attacks the breath. So collectively, we've all went, and that, what does that do to your body? Well, for me, my anxiety, I do experience anxiety from time to time. It's a part of my mental diagnosis that I was, given when I was younger. And it's a clinical depression, anxiety. People see you and they think that you have everything together, but you still go through these moments of, oh my God, where you're railroaded down this rabbit hole that makes no sense to anyone else when you try to tell them about it. So when I'm with psych patients, especially, I have to use breath work because if I don't, I will go down the rabbit hole with them because their psychosis will take my psychosis with it. And so I became more and more aware that I needed to use that whole deep breathing a lot. And you have to kind of do it when they're not aware that you're doing it so you don't seem like, oh God, what's wrong with you? And it comes off like that, So that's what I've been using. And it's a lot of the deep breathing. And I try to do it where they're not able to see what I'm doing it. But try doing that while still covered in COVID stuff. So that's where the challenge comes in, but I still do it. And yes, I'm breathing in my own CO2. Like, people are like, oh my God, it's CO2 levels. But there are places that we can go and take off the mask and just do some deep breathing throughout the shift. And that's what I do, especially when I have a psych patient.
Yeah.
So that way my triggers aren't, affected. And so that's how I use breath work.
I can imagine even walking around with the bunny suit, just even if you're not being triggered or not having a stressor, just needing to get an opportunity, a moment somewhere where you can free yourself to get in that clear, clean, free oxygen into your lungs and start the whole process of real breathing again.
And sometimes you just can't do it. You can't get away because you're so busy. And so what I do is I go to the bathroom a lot, y'all. I ain't gonna lie. I go to the bathroom and I take it off. And in the bathroom is where I sit and I do my breathing. I do it while I'm taking care of my other stuff. And then I force myself to do stuff like that. Or if I go into like the med room, for example, I try to do some deep breathing there. Or if I go into a supply closet, I do that too. That's how I get my breathing in. And wherever I can, I get it done.
Well, I got to tell you, I didn't even realize that there was ever such a thing as breath work until a gentleman came to our center. I don't remember his first name, but I remember it was Davis because it was your last name.
Yeah.
And there was different levels of breathing.
Mm-hmm.
There was the normal rhythmic, normal breathing, and then he had some music things happening, and told you when to speed up the breathing and what have you. And I noticed the different changes in my body, and I'm like, whoa. Then after that, I kind of noticed that in general, I'm a shallow breather.
Isn't that something? Like once you become aware of it, you're like, oh wow, okay, all right, I'm holding my breath here.
Yeah.
Why?
Because in just general conversation or sitting talking with people, I'll notice that I'm kind of not breathing. I'm like, okay, breathe, and I'll go ahead and take that deep breath. And it, even if you're not feeling anxious about anything, it still has that calming effect.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of makes life more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Breathing is actually a pleasurable experience if you take the time to experience it truly.
Mm-hmm.
But where I actually practice it most, I know we're both Reiki masters. But before I even became a Reiki master, I did this modality of healing called quantum touch.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very deep into the swift in and out breaths.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it has something to do with the movement of energy and what have you. So, anytime I'm doing energy work, I make sure that I keep the deep breathing happening because I know, it's helping not just the healing process, but actually helping my stability.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Another example of when I've really seen this modality used and used well. I didn't understand it at the time. And you remember when our daughter used to do that whole big breath thing when she would be talking to us about something that she was very passionate about and really felt really connected about something, or she was trying to explain something, she would stop and be like that. And I'll be like, okay, what is that about? Are you trying to say you're fed up with me or frustrated or something like that? And I remember one time I actually asked her, and before I used to, make assumptions, right? We all know those four agreements, right? Don't make assumptions. So I used to make assumptions that that I was driving her crazy. Like that's when my whole own mental,
or that she was getting exasperated by our lack of attention or whatever was going through.
And then of course I would let my anxiety take me down whatever rabbit hole that was. And so I started becoming aware. And then one day something said, just ask her why she does that. And I did. And she said, well, it feels like I can reset my body.
And she was what, like 13 at the time?
Yeah. And she said, so I do that. And it resets my body so it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming, the thing I'm talking about. And I thought, wow. And then I started doing breath work and workshops. Babes, and I was like, oh man, we do that coming in, right? As children, I watch babies do that because even that first breath, when they first get the slap, they go, but that's how they do it. And to come in, but we've always had that kind of, you always knew when they were going to let it rip, man, because they always did that deep breath before. Yep. Like, oh yeah, here comes the train. And I'm going to let go of a lot of energy when I start this crying. And so everybody around that baby starts to be like, oh Lord, it's coming, it's coming.
Let's fix it.
You see the breath starting first, like the train is starting that says that energy's coming, do something about it.
But you know what? We can learn so many things from it. Just watching our babies, because they are so close to source. They still get it.
Yes.
So
because nobody has said to them that this is inappropriate yet. And so what we have to be aware of is to bring their awareness to it. Like now I know that it's appropriate for me to take a few deep breaths. Same thing with anger, when somebody starts to feel that anger and they start to do that deep breathing. But we're going to talk some more about examples of when to do that deep breathing. But first, we're going to look to we're going to do a break at 8:30. I guess we could do a break now and then step into the examples. What do you think? Let's do a break.
Let's do it. It's our show. We do what we want.
I know, right? Let's do it whenever we want to. So we'll see y'all in a little bit.
Thought Media Network is on the rise. We're looking to grow with you. Do you have technical media experience or perhaps a desire to learn? Are you willing to volunteer your precious time and attention? We share this message to benefit all. If you possess a computer with a camera and a microphone, we will share our knowledge with you. Behind the scenes or being the star, let us bless our one. Contact us at info@ntmedia.org.
There's one power invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. One power in
Hey guys, we're
Welcome
back.
back.
So we are talking about caring for caregivers. We're talking about being caregivers ourselves, professionally and not professionally, because I'm a daughter. I'm still a daughter. My mother has made her transition last year.
But they never really leave us.
Spirit world. No, she'll never leave. She sends me little messages. And I was also a caregiver for my grandmother when I was with her. That's one of the things that we do. In our families, we care for those who are vulnerable. And I am also a mother of two amazing children and a third beautiful son that I gained through my wife here.
Yeah. Well,
And I was never a caregiver for CJ. He was already
He was
grown
20
and
when we
kind of
got
doing his
together,
thing.
yeah.
But as a nurse and as a spiritual leader and as a professional, when it comes to giving your energy to others to help them grow and to help hold them when they are vulnerable, we have to be replenished somehow. And if we don't take care of ourselves, we can't keep giving. You're going to run out of stuff to
can't
give.
give from an empty cup.
Cannot give from an empty cup. And so some of us look outside of ourselves for that care, but we're talking about replenishing the cup by doing some self-care. And one of the things we're talking about today is breath work and all these different modalities of breath work that we have experienced and wanted to
spend
share
time
with y'all.
when we actually can use it,
Exactly.
but you don't think about.
Mhm.
And the one that came to my mind at first when we started talking about breath work was based on Valerie Kaur's work. When I don't like to talk about people that are enemies or anything like that, so I like her expressions of opponents.
Mhm.
An opponent is anyone who is not in agreement of what you're thinking, trying, or doing.
Yes.
And for example,
Mhm.
a parent and kid in any given situation. Sometimes
The child is the opponent. They're on the other side of what we want to get done today, like go to bed.
So that is one of the first things that came to my mind as a great opportunity to use breath work Sometimes it really, really saves children. Because sometimes if we act on our first thought or instinct, when they act or react to what it is that we're saying or trying to impart to them, usually there's a better way than what we first come to our head with.
She's from the school of thought of spare the rod and spoil the child.
Yeah,
That
we'll go with
old
that.
school way of of doing things. And then I came from the school of thought that was different, was having discussions with your children. And so we kind of came up together with something that worked, I think, for the children. And that's with the kids. We involved them in how it would progress for them. And so, yeah, it's a lot of deep breathing when they trigger us.
Yes, because and it's not that saying kids is just an example. Anyone who is in opposition of what it is that we're attempting or trying to do, so just taking that moment to.
And if you can't do it because they're standing in front of, then walk away. Walk away.
Still doing the breath work.
Still do
because
the
it
breath
does do the
work.
calming effect on
Yes.
your person, your being, and your outlook on the entire situation that's happening. So yes, if you can't get that breath in because they're standing in front of you, looking at you, yelling at you, doing whatever it is that's causing you the angst, walk away, take a few deep breaths, and you will really tell the difference. And you might not change your ideas on what it is you're thinking or saying or trying to impart, but it may give you a different perspective, a time to look at their side of the story or take a different perspective.
Mhm.
So that Viktor Frankl comment comes to mind in those situations
Yeah.
too.
Between
stimulus
stimulus and response, there's a space.
and
Use
in that
space.
space, breath work.
Breath work. Do
Yes.
breath work.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've realized too is that in the past I would be triggered. Like for me, when I'm angry, I tend to fall into shame very easily. I start to pull it into myself. And so I start to say, well, I can't say this and I can't say that because it's going to go against my nature, which is the nice person. I want to be liked. So I would pull it within and then I start crying because I'd be so angry that I want to say whatever. And I start crying and the tears start to happen. And like our daughter said, you have to get it out of my system. I have to do a reset. So being able to just walk away and step back. And sometimes you can't walk away because that patient is right in front of you or that family member is right in front of you screaming, whatever it is they're screaming. And if you walk away, then it will make you seem as if you don't care. So you're taking that moment. I do little breaths. Little deep breaths is what I call them. Little deep breaths.
Powerful
And
breath.
it's where, yes, and it's where, and I don't even know if this is actually a breath method, but this is how I do it. I do a little deep breath. So, normally a deep breath is more like this. If I was to do that in front of a patient's family or in front of my boss, then it may come off as a certain thing.
It denotes irritation.
Yes, it does denote irritation because guess what? You are irritated. But, but what I do is a little deep breath and I do something like this. I go.
And so it looks like you're just listening, taking in whatever it is they're saying to you. But the deep breaths are happening. The deep breaths are there, calming, recentering.
Calms me down.
Recentering, yeah.
And what I do is in my head, I'm doing the counts. I breathe in for 4, then I hold for 4, then I breathe out for 6. And that actually resets your fight or flight. I found that out in a breath workshop. I thought that was super cool. So that's an example of what I do when I can't walk away. I still do I call it the little deep breath. I'm sure it has some kind of actual terminology to it, but it's just where I just slowly, I allow for them to, because sometimes it's just they need to have a witness, somebody to vent to. And you just happen to trigger whatever in them and they just need to tell you their story. Well, my life is blah, 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 blah. And this is what happened. And now you're doing blah, 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 blah. And they're telling you the story, essentially. And when you are in that state of awareness of your own body system, then you can use that to keep yourself in the calm. And it really does work.
And help, again, taking the 4 agreements, keeping them at the forefront of your armor, Don't take it personally.
Even if it's
Because
even if you think it's about you.
Yeah.
Even if they say this is about you, guess what? It might not be.
It's their story. Whatever's coming out of their mouth, it's their story, not yours.
Even if they
So-
say it's you, it's not you.
Definitely. So yeah,
that's an
good
example of when we can use the deep breath and the little deep breaths. So another thing is in doing healing modalities like
Yeah.
Reiki, for
I kind of alluded to
example.
that earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because when you're taking the deep breath, you're allowing energy in motion, because that's what the breath is, to flow through you, and then you can impart that to whoever it is that you're working with.
So I encourage, and for me, Reiki is just, it's universal principles, and it's using that energy center of when I'm centered, I can then hold space with you, and as you are laying and allowing for your body to relax, your centering to match my centering is essentially what happens. So we do Reiki all the time, whether or not you're aware of it. You're always doing that kind of, you're doing with intention something to help somebody and help them feel better. So if you pick up a baby that's crying to hold them close, that's Reiki. Or if you're, petting a dog, that's Reiki. You're tapping into intention of helping you feel better. So when you are doing anything with intention like that, use a little bit of that breath work, because that actually gets you really grounded into your physical body. Not only does your body get oxygenated with awesome oxygenated blood, but you also, as you become more centered, your body becomes more grounded, and then that makes it easier for you to then hold space for someone else. So that's another great example of using the breath, the deep breathing.
You kind of touched on one earlier when you mentioned the pandemic, and you were like, people just kind of, it's one of those clutch your pearls type of periods, not moments. I mean, it's been what, 2 years now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a loss of freedom. Anytime you feel like you have a loss of freedom or a loss of anything.
Grieving. It's like we went on a collective grieving with each other because all of us lost freedom all at once. Now, there were those of us that were busy working the pandemic, like myself and Norma, but it still had that loss of freedom because I couldn't just go home and tap into my life. I was stuck in a hotel room. Even if I wanted to come home, which that ended up being the case for Mom, who was on hospice, and then your sister who ended up passing, we couldn't come home. And that loss of freedom of being able to just hop on a flight and just do what we wanted happened for everybody all at once. So in that collective grieving, we become aware. When we get angry because we're losing something, it's part of the grieving process. We've lost this freedom. Use the breath work in that moment. Yes, we've lost this freedom. Okay, but I have this moment to do this breath work because I'm not busy doing blah, 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 blah. Now I have this moment. Here's a little bit more freedom that I have, and a little bit more. And so I think that that's helpful.
Definitely. And again, it helps to clear not just your lungs and whatever, but it clears your mind.
Yeah.
It gets out all that, clutter that's hanging out in there, doing terrible, terrible things to your psyche.
Well, it's that oxygen, man. I got to tell you, you need oxygen in order to survive, okay? That's just the bottom line, oxygen and water and, a little bit of nutrients here and there. But, I'm saying, without the oxygenated blood, the vital organs don't do well. So past a certain amount of oxygen that's missing, the body starts to go into freak out mode. So you have to then become aware, oh, my body's in freak out mode. Maybe I should give it a little bit more oxygenation boost, if you will. So that way the body can then, okay, I can handle whatever this trigger is a little bit easier without kicking into the fight or flight. It's still gonna trigger, but the trigger comes, you feel it, and then of course the more you do it, that's why all of these are practices, right? Self-care practices. The more we do it, the more that it becomes easier for us to do it.
I saw you using it one time on this recent trip we did to Jamaica, and I don't even know if you realized, but because the next thing we're going to talk about is new experiences or challenges.
Oh yeah.
And there was this
breath when something is new.
There was this big, deep hole.
It's called Blue Hole. It's so cool in Jamaica.
And
There's a
Donna
couple
was
of
standing on the
blue holes. Wait.
side.
And I told myself, I come all this way. I'm on vacation. Guess who's going to jump in this hole like everybody else? All these other tourists come. I'm going to do it too. I want to experience what my island has to offer. But then I looked down this hole, and y'all, this hole is deep. There was nothing but darkness. And I'm like, ooh,
A lot of
this
deep
is
breathing.
exciting. But yeah. And you're standing on the edge there, and you're looking into this hole, and you're thinking, it's not so bad, because you can see the water, and you can see the long little ladder that goes down. But I'm remembering that I'm not the strongest swimmer. At least I've been telling myself that. But it's just because my muscles are not used to treading water on a regular. And I thought, if I jump into this thing and can't get to the ladder, I'm going to be in trouble. And nobody knows, because I'm too embarrassed to say that I'm not a very strong swimmer. So I don't have but there's two other people down there, so that if I was flailing about, they would, probably swim over.
They're lifeguards.
They're lifeguards.
They're
But
paid to look natural.
then I'm the one getting videotaped flailing about in the water, right? And all of this is happening to me as I'm standing on this little ledge, about to jump into this blue hole. And of course, there's beautiful island music going on. I'm like, oh boy.
There's video of this, by the way.
I can turn around now and not jump in the hole, or I can face my fear and actually do it and say, you know what, I did it.
So when you're taking the breaths and you're thinking about this plunge that you're about to embark on.
Oh man, I was thinking about my swimsuit riding up and all kinds of stuff.
But, apparently someplace in there was a bit of courage that kind of came in with those oxygenated, breaths that, filled your body.
It was a lot of my little devil on the side of my shoulder going, I dare you. Don't be chicken. Do it. You already told people you're going to do it. You got to do it now.
All eyes on you kind of moment.
Yeah. But, even though I was doing that, and it was a new experience, and of course, the next time I do it, I'll probably breathe beforehand, a little easier. I was aware that I needed to get my body wet first in the pool before I tried to do the jump in, because it's less shock to my system. So I did that first. And people kept saying, oh, just jump in, you'll be fine. It doesn't work like that for my body. So I'm more aware now that when I go to do something like that, and it is I want to go zip lining. And of course, my anxiety kicks up there that says, hey, this is dangerous. Don't do this. Why are you doing this?
A lot of deep breathing will happen again.
Lots of deep breathing will happen again. And I'm going to do it because I want to experience certain things. And it's all about the experience to say that, yes, I did it. And I came out the other side and I loved it. And I had that little thrill moment or whatever that was. And I got to experience the joy that others talk about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And one of the last things I know everybody, well, at least people that do this practice, it always starts with the deep breath. Mm-hmm. And that's meditation.
Yes.
They always say, relax, take a deep breath,
Mm-hmm.
And why is that?
Well, because it gets you aware of your body and where your body is. When I do the deep breath before starting any meditation, and trust me when I tell you, meditation and I have been communing because sometimes I can't get my head to shut up long enough to say that I actually meditated. Like, I'm like, okay, did I actually meditate, or did I just sit still for 10 seconds? And 10 seconds, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, it doesn't matter. My brain just seems to want to chatter, which is all a part of it. And it's becoming aware that there is chatter, and then saying, oh, look at that, I'm chattering. It's okay. But now I'm breathing again. And that, I think, was the biggest thing to help get that under control for me, because I felt like everybody was doing it well. And they all seemed so quiet when they're having their moment on their yoga mat. And I'm thinking, wow, look how good they are. I can't seem to get it together. Everything on me starts to itch. My nose itches, my forehead itches, anything to get me to move. And I'm like, no, I'm breathing. And I just had to keep Gail from Love My Body Yoga when we go with her and do breath work, whatever, and she'll say, okay, you tell your body who's in control. And I'm like, ooh, okay. I have a very, very strong and powerful body that is extremely demanding. So I have to tell her I'm in control.
And I'm pretty good at bossing people around. So, hey.
Everybody's like, yeah, Norma's in charge.
I go so deep within, I forget what the breath's doing because
she's sleeping. But we've done it and we keep doing it. And that's what I'm encourage y'all to do. Start it, try it, do it. There are just all this stuff that is available to you. Start it and try it. And even meditation for 10 seconds is better than no meditation at all. Just becoming aware that, oh, in this moment, I'm going to become aware of taking a deep breath and just allowing myself to center into me.
It's like even this morning when I first woke up and I'm laying there doing my shallow breathing that I do, I make myself for the however many minutes, I don't watch a time or anything, but I actually consciously focus on just my breath and making sure that I am taking deep breaths. And that, along with my meditation practice, that kind of is how I start each day. You know, so it's.
I do a little bit of self Reiki, and that involves deep breath, because for me, waking up in the morning I tell people it takes an act of Congress to get me out of bed in the morning, because for one thing, the whole depression thing in the body just feels like lead in the bed, and it's very difficult to move. But then as I laid there having my paralysis type moment that says, hey, wake up, no, go back to sleep, hey, wake up. I set like 3-4 alarms to kind of wake me back up, because I will wake up and turn off the alarm, but then my body will slip right back into sleep again if I'm not careful. And so it takes like a whole, sometimes 15, 20 minutes, half an hour. It's a process to get me out of the bed. And so I no longer fight myself or get upset with myself about it. I just put it into the time, so I just get up a little earlier, and then I just do my breathing, and I do some self, Reiki, and, just some self-awareness. Oh yeah, I'm back into the physical form now. From the dream world, I'm back in the physical form. Oh yes, take a deep breath, stretch out. Okay, move. How does the physical form feel? Kind of doing that little check-in in my body, because I think that that's what helps me then be able to transcend that world that is my dream world that calls me so much in the morning. And that's only because of getting up early to go to work. I'm a night person, y'all. I like night.
And I am the morning person, so yeah, I generally just kind of pop up and whatever.
Yeah.
But I've had a lot of people that have tried to, or have successfully actually quit smoking, say that they use breath work to replace the actual habit of the breathing in of a cigarette.
Mm-hmm.
Because, they say the actual addictive part of quitting smoking is only a few days.
Mm-hmm.
If you've not smoked for, 3 days, I don't know what the exact number is, your body is no longer addicted to it. It's just the habit of
it's a
the hand to mouth
addiction
and the deep breathing.
Yeah.
So if you generally, when you get the urge to have that cigarette or whatever, just sit and do some deep breathing.
Mm-hmm. For however long it would have taken you to smoke the cigarette, do the breath work.
And I've known some cigarette breaks that take
5 minutes, 10 minutes, because part of it's a social thing too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all these pieces and parts to that particular process that is addiction to cigarettes. And so what I know with my own experience with my ex-husband that used to smoke, and when he tried to quit smoking, it was so difficult. And then of course patients who are going through this and smoking in the bathroom, for example, crazy. But there are processes that are in place to help the body to get past that particular addiction. And so I know that there are online support groups, there are different 1-800 numbers you can call, anything to help with the psychologically and with the physical, patches and gum and whatever. Sometimes it takes a little bit of all of the arsenal to make it happen, but the breath work should be part of it. Yes. Because I feel that when the body needs that oxygen, it's going to demand something from you. It's going to say, it's the same thing with being thirsty or hungry. It's going to demand something from you, and it's going to say, hey, I'm hungry. And as somebody who has that to grab to satiate the body, I've been satiating with a cigarette for however many years or whatever. That's where the urge is going to come from. So if that urge is coming forward, then try drinking some water, seeing if it helps. Try the breath work for however long you would have been standing there having the cigarette, seeing if it helps.
But you know
Do
what?
both.
Even if the right away you don't feel the effects of the breathing, what it is actually doing is speeding up the healing of your lungs, speeding up the healing of your trachea. The damage that has been done by the cigarette, the deep breathing helps to speed up your recovery process, because you can re-heal the injury that's been happening from cigarette smoking. You just have to actually put in the steps and do the processes, and deep breathing is one of the steps.
And maybe, just to our people who have that as a challenge, maybe at the end of your cigarette, tell yourself, I'm going to smoke only half of a cigarette, and the rest of the time I'm going to do deep breathing.
That's an idea.
And even if you have, because I remember carrots, little baby carrots was one of the things my ex-husband used, and he would actually dangle it out of his mouth like a cigarette, and that's how he's, quit the first time. But if you say, okay, I'm going to smoke only 3/4 of the cigarette and the rest is going to be breath work, or half, and then slowly wane your way down into that. I wouldn't jar the body too much and say, well, today I'm going to quit, and then you're beating up yourself, because
some people can do that though,
some
but
people
it's
can
not
do it.
not a thing for everybody.
Because I believe that a lot of it is intention as well. If you're saying to yourself, you know what, I'm ready to step into this new way of being, and I'm going to support my body. And if my body says this is what I need, then I'm going to figure out if it's a nicotine thing, then I'll get a patch and, get under the advice of people who do this, who study this kind of thing. There's like a 1-800 number. I mean, it's crazy how much is out there for people, but if you really want to do it, you will do it. Yeah.
Definitely.
So where can we learn more, babe, about this thing called breath work?
Well, of course, YouTube has videos on everything.
Y'all, it is a plethora of information on YouTube and TikTok. It is everywhere, y'all. All you have to do is plug it in and say, where do I find da-da-da? You can find it in person. There are classes. There are workshops. There are people who this is their whole life. All they do is breath work. We have met with these people. We have done workshops with these people. Absolutely incredible stuff. I mean,
no matter where you are, I'm sure there is an in-person class that, either they can come to a group that you're having, or you can go to an existing group and experience breath work. And actually, because like I said, when I took my first breath work class, I didn't even realize I wasn't breathing right. I didn't know that was a thing.
And another thing is that some of the work that's being doing with like psychedelics nowadays, I have talked to people who do breath work, and they're like, listen, we have gone to the mountaintop, almost to the level of a psychedelic experience, just using the breath. And I was like, really? And I did it. And I got to tell you, it really does. It kicks you in a whole nother piece of atmosphere when you get there in your breath work, when you're in that breath work, breathing together, really doing, under the guidance of a master. Yes. Obviously, you're not going to be doing this kind of thing on your own unless you absolutely know what you're doing. So that level of breath work, definitely use a master with the guidance who can be watching your physical form, your body, as you're going through whatever transitionary period you're going through. I would not do that stuff alone, because you will get lightheaded. And,
I did. Even with the master there that was instructing us, whatever, when they got to what they called the hot breath, and you were doing really fast and whatever. And again, as a shallow breather, that was something so foreign to me that it was like I had run up a mountain, so I was so lightheaded and dizzy at the end of that. I had, good thing I had water handy, and because they'll tell you
when it comes to that kind of thing, and just ask questions ahead of time to the person who is the, facilitating, and just follow their guidance. And of course, drink plenty of water, y'all.
Yes.
But TikTok, I like TikTok because it's short and it's sweet and it's to the point. And it's a minute or 3 minutes, and you're in, you're out, you're bingo bango on with your life and on with your day. So there's tons of stuff. There's even Calm apps. Calm is one of the apps that I use. I use another one for sleep at night, and that helps me to calm. But there's another one that does the breathing, and you actually, in the app, it says hold your breath, now breathe, and the app does this where the music kind of goes up and then comes down, like the breathing in and out. It's really kind of cool.
There's all kinds. You'll find whatever works for you, because some people like the auditory, step by step, telling you when to breathe, when to exhale, when all of that should happen on a healthy time schedule. And then others, there's just music playing in the background with an occasional auditory saying some kind of prompt, or there's all kinds. There's every kind of methodology out there that so just search. There's like my son says, there's an app for that.
There's an app
for everything,
which is wonderful. So here's the thing: as we're talking about this particular aspect of self-care for caring for our caregivers, when you are in the middle of your moment with the person that you are caring for, a loved one, a child, a husband, wife, whatever, a patient, a client, anybody that you're giving care to in that moment, giving your gift, giving your professional wisdom, giving whatever it is you're giving. And if that person becomes an opponent, or let's say they are really pulling on your energy, like some of my psych patients who are in their disease process and I can't really communicate with them, they're not lucid, and I can't communicate, then reaching into these tools that you have in your arsenal in the background, I call my little tool belt I carry with me, really helps to replenish you as you're giving your gift. And so this particular modality that is breath work, you take it with you everywhere. It's free. You don't have to tell nobody you're doing it. It's completely personal. You can dive way deep into it by going into classes or workshops or whatever, or just taking a deep breath. And just in that moment, as you're taking your deep breath, you say to yourself, self, I'm doing an okay job. I'm all right. I'm doing the best I can.
Self-care 101, right there.
Yeah. So you look at yourself in your little mirror, in your mind's eye, and you say, self, you're doing the best you can with the resources you have available to you, with the time you have available to you, with the energy you have available to you. And you replenish yourself with oxygenated blood just by taking a deep breath. And so we're going to see y'all next week. We're going to talk about another aspect of self-care for caring for us caregivers, man, while we're out there doing our thing.
Take care of you, because you're the only one you got.
There's only one of you, and guess what? We don't need no more of you, because if we have duplicates of the same thing, how very boring the world would be. So I like that everything is different. I like that people are different and their style is different. And so I love that we can find these different things that we have used out there in the world in all our little travels and adventures that makes us more fulfilled as human beings and just makes life more fun.
Yes.
Yes.
So we're going to say ta-ta for now.
TTFN.
See you guys next week.
See ya. Mwah. Bye.
Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, for your continued support. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, for your monthly contribution. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, for your monthly contribution. And please help us welcome Om Center for Spiritual Living in La Mesa, California. Thank you for your monthly donation. Thank you, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, for your most generous donation. And a special thanks to Hefferland Foundation for your generous technology grant. and Suze Odgen. Thank you for your very generous donation. And a big shout out to all our committed donors.